All right, welcome everyone. This is Jordan with Ravens Flash Report, and the Ravens are officially moving on to the divisional round. I know a lot of people probably expected this slash wanted this to happen, especially after the most recent Steelers game. But the Ravens come in and, in my opinion, completely dominate the Steelers even more than they did the last time they saw them in Baltimore. I mean, this was just there was moments of hesitation in the third quarter towards the end of it where the Steelers got a little bit of momentum and the Ravens just stomped them out, honestly. Lamar Jackson just again continuing to crush all the haters, continuing to crush all the doubters, and goes out and puts out a fantastic play in the playoffs against not just a team like the Texans or Miami or a team that he's regularly dominated when he's seen them, but this is a team that has historically in Lamar's career given him some of the most problems. It's them and the Chiefs. Those are the teams that have given Lamar problems. And these last two games, he has handled them. And it wasn't even like, oh, well, they got to him early in the game, or no, he got sacked once. We'll go through some of these stats, but I mean, just a dominant display. And not just the players, but I have to say this is probably one of the better coaching games that I've seen this season from the Ravens. From John Harbaugh, who honestly, I feel like he actually outcoached Tomlin in this game, who and then Todd Monken, which he had an excellent game calling these plays, getting guys in great positions, getting them in a good rotation, mixing up who the ball was going to. The Steelers were never ready for pretty much any play that we saw. They have great players, so they're still going to make some of these plays behind the line of scrimmage or break up passes or whatnot. But it felt like every single play was the right play call. It just came down to players making plays, which that's out of the coach's hands. But Ravens win it 28-14. And again, the score, in my opinion, doesn't even indicate how just dominant the Ravens were in this matchup. They had a couple of lapses on defense, but I mean, the first half, we were going into the third quarter thinking this was going to be a shutout. And pretty sure if you told any Ravens fan that before this game goes in, to start or whatever, they were going to be giddy about hearing that result. So let's get into the numbers. Lamar Jackson goes 16 for 21, 175 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no picks, and a sack, passer rating of 132, which I saw at one point I think he was rocking like a 146.3 passer rating or something crazy, which on top of that, he didn't even start the game throwing the ball hardly at all. And I think a lot of that obviously has to do with the fact that we didn't have Zay, and Monken was clearly trying to establish that Lamar was a threat with his legs, that we were willing to use Lamar to win this game. This was a win or go home. The season's over. If we lose, pull out all the stops. So we saw good blocking from the offensive line. We saw decent pass protection. And some guys were getting beat. Again, Ronnie Stanley, he had a couple of issues with the false start. But again, you'll take that when the plays are working, when you've got guys who are getting the yardage that you need to pick up these first down. We had some really clutch plays from a lot of these guys who weren't Zay Flowers, who weren't Mark Andrews, who weren't Rashad Bateman. You had clutch plays from guys that are rarely called upon, and yet they're producing. So, guy that was called upon quite often, Derrick Henry, 26 rushing attempts, 186 yards and 2 touchdowns, 7.2 yards per carry. That is why the Ravens went out and got him. For games like this. This is a game where you want to put somebody away, you want to eat clock, and that's what the Ravens did. They ate the clock the entire game. And that's the position that you put the Steelers in this game, where Lamar and Derrick and the Ravens coaching staff and the Ravens defense, not only were Pittsburgh trying to defeat them, they were trying to beat the clock as well. And that's what the Ravens used against them the whole time. Lamar Jackson on the ground, 15 attempts, 81 yards, 5.4 yards per carry. Again, he felt more like a lot of his damage was done in the first half, and then Derrick came in and just cleaned up, basically. Hill had 6 carries for 12 yards. He did have a couple that were just, I won't say they weren't designed well, but there was definitely pressure getting through. But Hill's not the same kind of runner that Henry is. So when Hill hits a hole, if guys make contact with him, he's not going to carry them for 6 yards the way that Henry does. So it might look the same as far as how it's designed and where the gap is opening up. Even the size of the hole might look somewhat similar. But when Henry hits the hole, he's going to be carrying guys like Patrick McQueen, Deshaun Elliott. He's going to be carrying these guys for an extra 3 or 4 yards, like he did on his first touchdown run. I mean, he contacted guys basically a yard after the yard line of scrimmage, 2 more on the way into the end zone. So you're not going to see that same type of thing from Justice Hill. It's just not the same thing. But Mark Andrews, 2 rushing attempts, 5 yards, longest of 3 yards, but he got first downs. So I'm not a big fan of the tush push, as just it simply feels it's effective, but again, it's something that's like, I get it. You have to stop it if you want them to stop using it. You have to stop it. But when the ball is snapped and how they do it, it's always going to be in the offense's favor. So I don't want to just sit here and be like, oh, because it was the Ravens, I like it. I like that we won, and it is effective. But again, I don't know. But leading receiver on this team was Isaiah Likely. And going into this game, I wasn't going to outright say that this was going to be a likely game. It was going to be a game where he goes off. But with Zay not being active, and the Pittsburgh Steelers defense most likely anyway, going to be focusing on Andrews, on Bateman, on Lamar's main obvious targets, you were going to need guys who were maybe tertiary or depth guys, backups, whatever you want to call them. I don't even want to call them that, because on this team, everybody is a threat. That's the whole point. So Likely making plays in this game surprises absolutely no one. But he ends the day with 3 receptions, 53 yards. And again, some of his plays were just clutch. They were just big plays when we needed momentum on third downs. Either we behind the sticks because of penalties or something like that. But it was just Lamar making plays, Likely making plays. He also, I forget, I got to go back and look at it. I forget who it was on that big run that he made down towards the red zone, where he just shoved the dude, like basically pulled a Derrick Henry and just absolutely demolished a guy with a stiff arm. But I'm going to go back and watch that highlight. Mark Andrews has 2 receptions for 27 yards, big catch for 20. And again, Andrews, pretty quiet night from him. But again, I think that's probably what the Steelers were going for. They know that Lamar goes after Andrews, and without Zay, it just made it more obvious. So I don't think they went to Andrews very often and basically picked the matchups that they wanted. And the fact that they can do that as an offense, not have to rely on Andrews, that makes this team even more dangerous. Because again, in years past, it was if you took away Andrews or you took away Lamar's ability to run, they didn't really have very much. They weren't consistently getting first downs. They weren't consistently converting on third downs, and they weren't consistently scoring when they got into the red zone. We didn't need Tucker to do anything but kick extra points in this game, which I'm fine with saving him for big moments. But when you basically just score every time you get in the red zone and it's a touchdown, sure, that's fine with me. Aguilar had another big play, 1 catch, that's it, 25 yards, and it was huge. It was a huge play. Rashad Bateman, obviously, he had the touchdown. I saw somebody post a thing that was like, we're 9-0 when the Ravens, when Rashad Bateman gets a touchdown or something like that, which, I mean, we've got 12 wins on the regular season, so, and he had 9 touchdowns in the regular season, so I guess that sort of works. But and Tylan Wallace, I was saying to I have family here right now visiting, and I was saying to them, I was like, Tylan Wallace is the kind of guy where he's not going to get a lot of targets, but when he does get a target, he's going to make an impact. And again, I think that was the play where we needed 20 yards and he got 21 up the sideline. Tylan Wallace just continues to make huge plays when we need him. Justice Hill, 4 for 13. And again, he has that touchdown, which I was glad, obviously, because I mean, last time he was here against the Steelers, they knocked him out of the game, which was just unfortunate. I'm sure they weren't doing that on purpose, but to see him come back in and get a touchdown was great. But moving on to the defense was excellent in the first half, and they were good in the second half. Now, obviously, we are going to make adjustments at halftime, and the Steelers are going to make adjustments at halftime. So it wasn't super surprising to see some success from the Steelers offense in the second half, mainly because they could only get better from there. I mean, we basically completely demolished them in that first half, and they could get absolutely nothing going with the run game. So once these teams again had to rely on passing the ball, you saw that deep shot against Tre'Davious White. You saw a couple of good plays against Brandon Stevens, even a couple of good plays against Wiggins and Humphrey. There's just, guys are still going to make plays, and as obnoxious as Pickens is, and I'm glad he did at least get called for one push off. He is a talented wide receiver. He's just big baby throwing tantrums on the sideline, which surprised we didn't see that. But I don't know. He's also kind of a quitter too, so wasn't too surprising, I guess. But great game from Justin Madubuike. He ends the day getting he only has three tackles, 4 total tackles, 3 solo, 1 tackle for loss, and then 2 sacks with a pass deflection. So again, great game from Madubuike, and it's great to see him show up in the postseason because during the regular season, a lot of fans were they weren't down on him, but he gets this big contract after this massive breakout season in a contract year, and he has a little dip in production. That's understandable. Nobody was really game planning for him coming into last season. And I'm not saying that he was getting bad matchups, and no, you're still putting starters out there. But he's not getting doubled nearly as much last year as he is this year. So when you see that drop in production, what that really is just people putting respect on his name. And the fact that he was able to fight through that and get 2 sacks in a playoff game, like that should show you that he's still there. And so that was a great performance from him. Owe also picked up a sack, so did Michael Pierce. So Michael Pierce now, I mean, he's just grabbing interceptions. He's getting after the quarterback. He's doing everything. So maybe they'll put him on kick return too. Make sure he secures that ball. But some of these team stats are kind of what I think paint a better picture for how dominant this win actually was. Because you look at the score and you're like, oh, like maybe the Ravens pulled away late or something. If you're just a box score watcher, you didn't watch the game, whatever it is. But I mean, Ravens basically were 40-20 on time of possession. The Steelers had no chance to do anything in the first half, and when they did, the Ravens defense was just dominating them. Total yards, Steelers had 280 total yards. The Ravens had 464, which I'll go back and double check, but I'm pretty sure that's like probably like the second, either the most or the second most yards that we've had all season. We have been over the 4s a couple times, but I'll need to double check that. Passing yards, the Steelers have us there 251 to 165. And the fact of the matter is just, again, this was another game where we just simply didn't need to pass the ball that much. We were dominating the run game. They could not stop the run. Why put the ball at risk? Why put it up in the air? I mean, you just didn't need to. And when he did, Lamar made smart choices that's why he had the great passer rating that he did. That's why he still had 2 touchdowns, no picks. He still played a clean game. He just didn't need it. And then we get to the rushing yards. And I knew we were beating them really badly on the ground. I just didn't realize how lopsided it was. So Pittsburgh ends with 29 rushing yards. 29. The Ravens end with 299. So there's where your bulk of 464 comes in. 300 yards on the ground. And obviously 186 from Derrick Henry and another, what was it, 81 from Lamar. Like, yeah, that's going to do it. But again, it's like, that was early. It was often. It was big runs. It was just, again, every single time they got the ball, you're averaging over 5 yards a carry for both of these guys. That's why we're eating so much. That's why we had so many run plays. I think they said it was like 49 running attempts in this game. It's just insane. We had a total of 72 running plays, and Lamar only threw the ball 21 times. So you do the math there. We ran the ball on them effectively all game. We sacked them 4 times. They only sacked us once. No turnovers in this game. And a lot of people going into this game were talking about the turnovers and how the turnovers have always been a decisive factor in these games. And it's true, obviously. Lamar does not have a great history with the Steelers, facing the Steelers with their passing attack, with their rush defense and all that kind of stuff. Lamar does not have a great time against the Steelers a lot of times with his turnovers. But what I think this also illustrates is if there are no turnovers, if turnovers are out of the question, we don't get any, they don't get any, they don't affect the game at all, right? The Ravens are the better team. Plain and simple. They made more plays on offense. They made more plays at the line of scrimmage. They made more plays downfield. And other than a couple of lapses, which are going to happen in most games, they just simply are. Nobody plays a perfect game, but this shows that when you take out the turnovers, you take out a lot of the bigger mistakes that have these big impacts, the Ravens are the better team. So when they play clean football, they had 3 penalties in this game. 2 of them were on Ronnie Stanley. The Steelers had 7. So again, these self-inflicted wounds, when they don't hurt the Ravens and they hurt the other team, you get these dominant wins. You get these wins where it proves again that the Ravens are the better team, the more complete team, the more competitive team. And with how Hamilton and Washington are playing in the secondary in that safety position, we are an exceptional defense. 29 yards on the ground and 251 passing yards sounds decent, but again, it's the postseason. You scored 14 points against this defense. And most of that was when we were already up 3 scores. And even when you scored the first one, we immediately came back with our own score. I think I have to double check, but I want to check that drive because there was that one drive right after they scored their touchdown in the third quarter where we basically, I think we ran like 4 plays and scored a touchdown. Let me just double check right here. Yeah, so they score their touchdown. Van Jefferson scores a 30-yard touchdown. So the first play is when Lamar gets sacked. So Lamar gets sacked for negative 10 yards. And you know the Steelers fans are feeling themselves. They're excited about it. Then we're 2nd and 20. Tylan Wallace goes for 21 yards. So he picks up the first down even after the sack. So immediately behind the sticks doesn't matter. Then you have Sims rush for 15 yards, his one rush of the game. He rushes for 15 yards. And then Derrick Henry just puts on the gas 44 yards up the middle for a touchdown. So you basically go from, hey, we've got some energy. We've got some, now it's 7-21, not 0-21. And you got 8 minutes left in the third quarter. You think, hey, we've seen this Ravens defense fall apart. And then again, at basically 6 minutes, you're back down by 3 scores. So 3 touchdowns at that. And then the Ravens just basically held them from there. But yeah, I mean, this was just a dominant win. Every single aspect of this, every part of the game was dominated by the Ravens overall. I mean, 29 first downs to 11. Like every aspect of this from a statistical and eye test was that the Ravens dominated in this win. So next week, we don't know who we face, obviously. Those games still have to be played. So the Bills take on the Broncos. That's going to be on Sunday at 1 o'clock. And then the Packers play later. And then at 4:30, Commanders and Buccaneers play later than that. Obviously, we don't have to worry about any of the NFC teams. So with the Texans beating the Chargers, they are probably going to be facing the Chiefs. And we are going to be facing either the Broncos or the Bills, whoever wins that game. So yeah, should be a good match, whoever we get. I think if I had my choice, just because again, the way that it worked for the 2012 Ravens that won the Super Bowl, going through that gauntlet of, I mean, you had luck with the Colts in Baltimore, then you went to Denver and beat Manning, then you beat Brady, and then you had to win the Super Bowl. I think, again, from a storyline perspective, and again, proving that these Ravens are legitimately one of, if not the best teams in the NFL, you got to beat the Bills. And we've already done that this season. But week 4 and week 20 are completely different. The Ravens are different and the Bills are different. But the Ravens still have Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, the actual MVP. And again, the Broncos don't scare me, and it's no disrespect to them. But the Broncos, the Texans, the Bills, these are all teams we've already beaten. Every single team that's here, we've beaten, except for the Chiefs. And once we get through the Bills, once we get through the Texans, the Broncos, whoever we face next week, I want us to take on the Chiefs, and I want us to beat the Chiefs. Now, that's going to require the secondary to play great against their receivers, against Patrick Mahomes. The pass rush is going to have to get there, but our offensive line is going to be so much better than it was the first time that these Chiefs saw us. So, with that in mind, excellent game, excellently called game by Monken, and just fantastic game put together by the Ravens to beat not only their division rivals, but again, just clean game. Not a lot of penalties. Great game by Lamar passing. Great game running the ball. Every single aspect of this Ravens win was dominant, and that's what we want to see going into next week into the divisional round. So if you guys are excited for it, go ahead and hit the like button. We'll be having a preview video coming out soon for the next week's game. And I don't care. I know you guys are probably like me. I don't care who we face. I'm ready for whoever. So hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys enjoyed the game. And we'll be seeing you soon. All right. As always, guys, stay safe out there. Enjoy.